Today, we are strapping in for a journey to a land that really, it just defies expectation.
It really does.
When people talk about this place, you hear words like timeless, otherworldly, even unconquered. It's a geography where every single thing, every towering structure, every ancient tree, every granite mountain tells this spectacular story. And it's not just about survival. It's about, well, astonishing ingenuity, both human and natural.
That's the perfect way to frame it. We're exploring a region that's this profound blend of, on one hand, deep human history, and on the other, just genuine biological anomaly.
Right.
The architectural solutions on the mainland are, they're just mind-boggling. We're talking about 500-year-old skyscrapers made of mud.
It sounds impossible.
It does. And then you shift your gaze to the surrounding islands, and you find these biological secrets that, make you question whether you've left Earth entirely.
So our mission today is to give you a shortcut, a way to get really well informed on this remarkable corner of the world. We're going on a true knowledge quest, uncovering the genius of the mainlands, let's call them architects of resilience, and then diving deep into these unique ecosystems you can't find anywhere else.
And we need to set the scene for you right away. So just visualize this. Imagine massive soaring sand dunes meeting these clear turquoise waves on an isolated coast.
Okay, I can see that.
And then picture the vibrant, dark red sap of the dragon blood tree, its canopy looking like a dense, spiky umbrella just towering over these dramatic canyons. Now contrast that with the mainland ancient, vertical, towering mud brick towns that look like something pulled straight out of a fable. We're going to unlock the secrets held by these magnificent landscapes.
All right, let's unpack this incredible architectural heritage on the mainland, because the way they solve the fundamental problems of space and security it's nothing short of revolutionary. We have to start with the city that got that famous nickname, the Manhattan of the Desert. Of course, we're talking about Shibam.
Shibam is a total marvel. Imagine walking into a city that's built entirely of unfired mud brick or adobe. And the buildings don't just stand there, they rise. 5, 7, some of them even 11 stories high.
11 stories?
11 stories. And they're packed so tightly together that they often share walls, essentially forming a single massive urban wall protecting everyone inside. These towers are, well, they're universally recognized as some of the earliest and most successful examples of large-scale vertical urban planning on the entire planet.
It's the material choice that just blows my mind. Mud brick for skyscrapers. Most early civilizations, they spread out, right? Single-story, maybe two-story buildings. But here, they just went up against gravity, using essentially earth and straw.
Yeah.
Why? Why was building vertically the only answer in this specific desert context?
Well, the necessity was driven by a really complex set of needs, both environmental and for security. So as an agricultural society, their most fertile land was in the valleys. But that land was, incredibly valuable for growing food.
You can't build on your food source.
You can't. That's problem number one. Limited space. They just refused to pave over precious farmland. So building upward instead of outward preserved that vital agricultural base. It allowed the city to actually feed itself.
Okay, so preserving the farmland was one big factor. What was the second, maybe more pressing reason that drove them to build what was basically a massive fortress?
The second, and you're right, probably the driving necessity, was defense, protection. Shibam is strategically located in a region that was prone to conflict from neighboring tribes, from opportunistic raiders throughout history.
Right.
By building these high, tight towers, they created a nearly contiguous defensive wall. The walls are thick, the lower-level entrances are minimal and really easy to defend. Consolidation wasn't just about saving space, it was fundamentally about survival. Verticality solved limited space, flood risks from the wadi, and security all in one ingenious swoop.
I get the genius of the design, but I am still stuck on the technical side of the material. Adobe, mud brick, it needs constant maintenance, right? Especially in harsh weather. How do these structures survive for 500 years?
And that's where the true generational genius of these architects comes in. These aren't temporary buildings. The secret is the maintenance cycle and the composition of the brick itself.
Okay.
So the mud brick has this phenomenal thermal mass, which means it keeps the inside cool during the scorching day and warm during the cold desert night. But the key, the absolute key to longevity, is the exterior lime wash, a plaster layer they apply to the facade.
Which protects it from the elements, rain specifically.
Exactly. When it rains, the water would just erode the mud almost instantly. But this lime wash, this protective coating, it needs to be periodically reapplied.
Okay.
traditionally about every 30 to 50 years. So this isn't a one-time construction project. It's a constant multi-generational promise to maintain the city. The builders weren't just building for themselves, they were planning a maintenance cycle for their great-grandchildren.
Wow. That insight, that these are generational maintenance projects, not just finished buildings, that completely changes how you see them. Okay, let's shift to a different kind of vertical building. Structures that seem to merge completely with the landscape, almost becoming part of the mountain. Al-Hajar is a perfect example of this.
Al-Hajara is. It's something else. It's perched on an ancient mountain ridge, and the village is built directly onto this steep, jagged, rocky cliff face. The look of it is just spectacular. The stone architecture uses the natural rock as its foundation, sometimes even as its walls, so the houses look like a natural extension of the mountain. It's really hard to tell where the rock ends and the human construction begins.
And the multi-story design here, it served a similar purpose to Shibam optimizing space, but it also became this kind of localized microclimate management system. How did that steep slope dictate how each level was used?
The design was entirely functional, just completely optimized for the precarious limited space on a cliff. The lower levels had a very specific protective purpose. They were built deep into the rock or against the thickest stone. This area often housed the most essential resources: livestock, grain storage, water cisterns.
Why put the livestock downstairs?
Well, it protected them from raiders and the elements, for sure. But more importantly, the dense stone and earth on those lower floors offered incredible insulation. This protected the grain from damp and cold that naturally pools closer to the ground at that altitude. So the grain stays dry, the animals are sheltered, and the upper floors, they get the benefit of that thermal mass below and more sunlight, so they served as the living quarters. It was passive climate control, just based on altitude and material density.
A masterpiece of adaptive engineering. Okay, let's shift focus a bit geographically and look at urban defense, specifically the city of Taiz, which just clings to the slopes of Jabal Sabir. And the focus here has to be the Al-Qahira citadel.
Taiz, as it winds its way up the mountain, is a city defined by its deep history as a fortress. It's all about resilience. The Al-Qahira citadel is its crown jewel, and it demonstrates this pure, functional defensive mindset. This is thick, expertly engineered stone architecture. We're talking massive stone walls, towering watchtowers placed for maximum visibility, and battlements designed not just to repel attackers, but to give defenders clear firing lines and cover.
Of course, a citadel is only useful if it can withstand a long siege. So what specific features did the interior have to make sure people could survive and stay coordinated during a long conflict?
That's the critical detail, isn't it? The citadel wasn't just an empty shell. It was designed to be a completely self-sustaining miniature city. Internally, there were vast stone-lined water reservoirs designed to collect rainwater and substantial underground food storage areas. This meant occupants could survive for months, maybe even longer, under siege.
And what about its role beyond just defense? Was it purely military?
No, not at all. Administratively, it was the nerve center of the entire region. Archaeological evidence suggests it served a pivotal governmental function. In peacetime, it housed the local governor and military commanders. During a conflict, it became the unassailable center for administrative control, which is essential for coordinating defenses, managing the surrounding territory, and projecting power. The citadel perfectly summarizes that need to blend architecture, resource management, and governance for long-term survival in a volatile place.
So if we connect this focus on defense and maximizing space, we see this consistent theme emerging: overcoming resource scarcity.
Exactly, especially water. The inhabitants of this region didn't just survive in arid lands, they turned them into centers of power and flourishing agriculture through masterful civil engineering.
Okay, then we have to talk about Marib, the ancient capital. When you hear about great ancient engineering feats, the pyramids, the Colosseum, the Marib Dam absolutely belongs in that conversation. It was a masterpiece that literally manufactured an agricultural civilization in the middle of a desert.
It really was. Marib, the ancient capital of the Sabaean kingdom, was famous throughout the ancient world precisely because of its advanced irrigation. The Marib Dam was one of the greatest engineering projects of antiquity. And it wasn't just a barrier. It was a highly sophisticated water distribution system that operated for over 1,000 years. Its success meant transforming what should have been an unusable arid desert region into the most thriving, fertile agricultural hub in the entire peninsula.
When we talk about the scale of this, what are we actually picturing? How large and complex was this system?
The scale is just astonishing. The dam structure itself was massive. The crucial element was its dual sluice gate system, the northern and southern sluices, which diverted water into these extensive, expertly dug canal networks. At its peak, the irrigation network was estimated to have supported intensive cultivation across about 25,000 acres. That directly sustained a population estimated to be in the tens of thousands. Controlling water on that scale was, if controlling the lifeblood and the political power of the entire region.
And the wealth from that agricultural base, it didn't just feed people, it funded something much larger. It funded global trade. Marib became this critical choke point in the ancient economy.
Precisely. The dam's success fueled the trade economy. Marib wasn't just known for its grains. It was a key hub for the ancient trade routes, particularly the incredibly lucrative trade of frankincense and myrrh.
Right.
These resins were sought after globally, from the temples of Egypt to the Roman Empire. Caravans loaded with these passed through Marib, making the kingdom fabulously wealthy and internationally connected. The dam's engineering literally empowered the kingdom, establishing them as a major world player.
That's macro-level engineering. Let's pivot to isolated resilience, where villages survived purely through localized micro-ingenuity. Haid al-Jazil is a visually striking example, sitting dramatically on a tall rock outcrop. Their primary challenge wasn't distributing a massive river's worth of water, but just capturing enough rain to survive.
The visual is breathtaking. This village is essentially glued to a sheer rock face, and its survival story is pure dedication to localized water management. Because there are no nearby permanent rivers or streams, survival depended entirely on collecting and storing seasonal rainfall. The villagers didn't bring in materials, they used the environment itself.
So how did they manage that? How do you collect water when your whole village is on a dry, steep rock?
They developed these clever, localized systems carved directly into the rock. They meticulously carved channels and gutters into the stone to direct every single drop of rainwater runoff from the roofs, and exposed rock surfaces into deep, often hidden cisterns, or burqa, right beneath their houses.
Yeah.
The porous nature of the surrounding bedrock also helped filter the water. This dedication to getting every drop from every storm is a testament to survival engineering at the micro scale.
And you can contrast that with Al-Hajrain in Wadi Duwan. This picturesque village clinging to a steep hill tells a story of economic resilience, one tied to shifts in trade.
Al-Hajrain is visually stunning, with its layered mud brick homes just wrapping around this steep hill. But what's really significant about it is its longevity. Unlike so many other settlements along the historic routes that just faded away after the famous incense trade declined.
When the caravans stopped coming through?
Exactly. When that happened, they vanished. But Al-Hajrain managed to survive and even flourish.
How did they pull off that economic pivot?
They diversified their economy early on. They relied heavily on local agriculture, cultivating crops in the surrounding valley floors, and perfecting these ingenious gravity-fed irrigation systems that tapped into groundwater. This self-reliance on sustainable agriculture, rather than dependence on transient trade wealth, it just ensured their stability across centuries.
We can't talk about arid land agriculture without discussing the sheer, almost unimaginable effort that went into creating the terraced fields on the slopes of Jabal Sabir. This is human labor defying gravity, erosion, and time all at once.
This truly illustrates a resilience that spans generations. It's timeless. These terraced fields are a massive civil engineering achievement. They were built entirely by hand using local stones to create thousands upon thousands of retaining walls, all perfectly level. They've existed for over 2,000 years, and crucially, they are still in use today. Can you imagine the generational commitment required to build, maintain, and perfect those stone walls over 2 millennia? It's a living monument to continuous labor.
So what are the main crops they're growing on these ancient high-altitude steppes, and what else makes this particular mountain so unique?
Well, these terrace slopes are incredibly fertile thanks to careful water retention. The primary crops include high-quality coffee, which has a massive historical significance in the region, as well as quat wheat and barley. But Jabal Sabir is also a highly important sanctuary for unique wildlife. Its fragmented rocky habitat is one of the few places left that supports the Arabian leopard.
Oh.
Yeah, an apex predator that is now critically endangered. Sightings are extremely rare, which just underscores the delicate balance of this ancient ecosystem.
Moving to another fascinating agricultural area, Jabal Bura. This location is unique because it's surrounded by thick, lush forests, creating one of the rarest ecosystems in the entire region. What makes this pocket so special?
Jabal Bura stands out dramatically because it's a remnant cloud forest, a unique microclimate created by seasonal monsoon rains and persistent fog rolling in from the coast. This makes it an unusual pocket of immense biodiversity in an otherwise largely arid zone. And you find those same extensive hand-carved agricultural terraces here used to grow high-value crops like coffee and quat, but the surrounding environment is this dense forest.
So it's not just the plants that are unique, but the animals that have adapted to this rare environment. Tell us more about the primates found here.
This unique ecology supports the Hamada's baboons. These are highly social primates known for living in very large, intricate groups led by dominant, powerful males. They maintain these extraordinarily strict social structures where females and their young belong to distinct units, often called harems, overseen by a single male. They're incredibly adaptable foragers, using the abundant resources of the forest, feeding on fruits, leaves, roots, and insects found within this unique mountain ecosystem. Their complex social dynamics are a reflection of the richness and stability of this rare habitat.
Here's where we shift from impressive engineering to just deep history. Specifically sites that challenge what we often think we know about the earliest ancient civilizations, particularly when it comes to sophisticated practices like funerary rites and preservation. How far back does this history really go? Let's talk about Almawit.
Almawit is a breathtaking mountain town. It's located at a high altitude, around 2,100 meters, which means historically it's been both hard to access and strategically important. But its history is profoundly deep. Recent archaeological surveys here have unearthed some startling discoveries. Over 700 ancient sites, including rock tombs and mummies that date back thousands of years.
The mummies themselves are the headline story, right? The preservation process used was highly sophisticated, comparable to techniques used in ancient Egypt, but with this crucial timeline detail that could, well, rewrite history books.
Exactly. The mummification techniques discovered at Almawid are comparable in complexity and effectiveness to those mastered by the ancient Egyptians. However, some of the evidence suggests these practices may predate the 3rd century BCE, which means they could be even earlier than comparable Egyptian finds from certain periods. This antiquity and the level of preservation technology discovered earned Almawid the nickname, the Tombs of Kings.
So what's the implication of that? Why does it matter if this technique predates or existed independently of Egypt?
Oh, the significance is massive. It challenges the centralized view of early sophisticated cultural development. It implies that these communities were independently mastering complex chemical and preservation processes, or that there were unrecorded trade and knowledge exchanges connecting the Arabian Peninsula with the Nile Valley, maybe earlier and more robustly than we ever documented. It forces a complete reassessment of which cultures were pioneering complex sciences in the ancient world.
From the stillness of the tombs, we move to a city that has been the beating heart of civilization for millennia, Sanera. We're talking about one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the entire world, a place where life has just pulsed constantly for over 2,500 years.
The city's history is so profound that, tradition holds Sanera was founded by Shem, a son of Noah. Whether that's literal or symbolic, it speaks volumes about the historical weight and the identity of the place. But what immediately captivates any visitor is the unique, dense architectural style.
It's instantly recognizable. It's often described using these surprisingly whimsical terms despite its ancient construction. I love the nickname, the gingerbread houses.
It's highly evocative, isn't it? The city is famous for its unique multi-story mud brick buildings, which are intricately decorated with these elaborate white patterns made from gypsum plaster. This white detailing, often adorning the window frames and the crenellations on the roof, makes them look like delicate, fantastic gingerbread houses. It's a powerful cultural blend of robust, earth-based construction methods adapted to the climate, married with this refined, intricate artistry and geometry.
A unique feature of that architecture, beyond the mud brick and gypsum, is the stained glass, right? And the way they managed light.
Yes, the windows are remarkable. They utilize what are called Komarya windows. These are semicircular stained glass lunettes, often placed high in the rooms, just beneath the ceiling. They not only filter the harsh desert light into this diffused, colorful illumination inside, but they also provide ventilation while maintaining privacy and keeping direct sun exposure to a minimum. It's practical, artistic, and entirely unique to the region.
And culture, of course, extends to food. You can't discuss the deep history of a place like Sana'a without mentioning the culinary traditions that have also endured for millennia.
Absolutely. A special highlight of Sana'a's vibrant culture is its food. And mala'ak is a standout dish that reflects both the simplicity of ingredients and the complexity of technique. It's a flaky, layered bread cooked quickly at a very high temperature in a traditional tanner or clay oven, which gives it that characteristic golden, crispy texture.
How is it traditionally served?
It's incredibly versatile. It's often served piping hot, ready to be torn into pieces. For a sweet start to the day, it's paired with locally sourced honey. For a savory experience, it might be served with sahawika spicy tomato dip, flavored with chilies and herbs, or simply with boiled eggs. It really speaks to the simplicity and depth of the local cuisine, perfected over centuries.
Within the city, we see two landmarks that perfectly summarize Sana's enduring architectural legacy, one that looks boldly toward the future and one that captures the refined history of the early 20th century. First, the thoroughly modern landmark, the Al Salah Mosque.
The Al Salah Mosque, completed in 2008, is a massive undertaking. It stands as a phenomenal example of modern Islamic architecture that masterfully incorporates traditional Yemeni design elements and materials on a monumental scale. Its sheer size and detailed craftsmanship are just stunning.
What specifically ties this modern structure back to the deep history of the land?
The choice of materials. That's what grounds it. The walls are built using locally sourced black and white stones, deliberately reflecting the historical tradition of using natural regional materials in both architecture and decoration. Inside, the level of craftsmanship is almost overwhelming. The ceilings are adorned with elaborate, hand-carved wooden panels, and the floor is covered by an enormous 6,000 square meters of custom carpets, all intricately designed and woven specifically for the mosque. It's a modern achievement built with a profound reverence for the country's ancient artistic roots.
And in stark contrast, geographically and chronologically, we have the Dar al-Hajar Palace, a historical gem perched dramatically on a rock spire, built in the 1930s.
This palace was the fortified summer retreat for Imam Yahya. It's a multi-story complex, designed not just for residence but for prestige, with enormous reception halls and bathing pools. Architecturally, it's visually integrated with the rock, mirroring that ancient ingenuity we talked about earlier with Al-Hajar.
But the truly advanced feature, speaking once again to the region's mastery of arid engineering, was the water system required to maintain its most celebrated feature, the hanging gardens. Building a garden on a dry spire is an enormous logistical challenge.
It was absolutely essential and incredibly advanced for its time. The palace featured those famous hanging gardens, which required a continuous, robust supply of water. This was facilitated by an intricate aqueduct system, drawing water from an enormous, expertly engineered well. That well went down a staggering 60 meters deep into the bedrock to tap into a reliable aquifer. It was a self-contained oasis, a display of wealth and technological capability, supported entirely by deep infrastructure. Today, it stands as a cultural center and museum, preserving the ingenuity of that era.
Okay, so if we connect this history of human-made resilience, the dam builders, the vertical city architects, to the broader planetary biological context, we have to shift our gaze entirely.
We really do. We travel about 250 miles off the mainland coast into the Indian Ocean to Socotra Island, which holds biological secrets that truly rival the mainland's historical wonders.
Socotra Island is the reason this place is so often called otherworldly. It has earned a fantastic nickname that immediately signals its staggering biological significance.
It is rightly nicknamed the Galapagos of the Indian Ocean. But in some ways, it's even more dramatic. Because of its extreme geographical isolation, it's separated from the African continent millions of years ago, and its unique climate and evolution, the island is one of the most unusual ecological zones on Earth. The stats on its biodiversity are just incredible. Scientists estimate that about 1/3 of the island's entire plant species exist only there. They are entirely endemic.
And these aren't just species that have evolved recently. Some are, relics of deep time. Evolutionary paths that were wiped out on the mainland long ago.
That's what makes Socotra a priceless living museum. It harbors species that have remained virtually unchanged for millions of years, adapting perfectly to the harsh, dry conditions. They are botanical ghosts of evolutionary paths that have vanished everywhere else.
The iconic, emblematic species of Socotra is, of course, the dragon blood tree. It looks like it was designed by a movie set creator, not by natural evolution.
It is visually unforgettable. This tree, Dracaena cinnamomum, is defined by its thick, bulbous trunk and its dense, spiky, umbrella-shaped canopy. It is the defining feature of the Dixum Plateau, often appearing as a single, surreal outline against the rocky, arid skyline.
And it gets its name from that distinctive deep red sap which has been prized for millennia.
The name comes from its dark red resin. Historically, this dragon blood was highly prized across ancient trade networks. It was used extensively for its medicinal properties. They believed it could treat wounds and fevers, as well as being a high-quality natural dye and even a varnish for instruments. But to understand the tree's biological genius, you have to look closely at its canopy structure, especially when you see the dense groves in Firmin Forest.
Let's focus on Firmin Forest then, one of the last remaining dense groves. That umbrella shape isn't just aesthetic, it's a brilliant, highly specialized survival mechanism in this arid environment.
The umbrella crowns are absolutely vital for survival because they function as atmospheric condensers. Socotra gets seasonal fog and heavy dew, especially at higher elevations. The dense, spiky canopy intercepts this moisture directly from the air far more efficiently than a traditional leaf shape. That collected moisture then drips straight down the trunk and branches, funneling the water directly to the base of the tree and its roots.
So the trees are actively harvesting their own water from the atmosphere.
Precisely. They are masters of creating their own microclimate. The moist, shaded conditions under the canopy support a mini ecosystem. This area supports smaller, delicate endemic plants that rely on the dragon blood tree's water funneling, and it creates a specialized habitat for endemic insects and reptiles found nowhere else on Earth. The dragon blood tree is an entire critical ecosystem unto itself.
Wow. Okay, now, we transition from the high plateaus down to the surreal coastal wonders, moving to Iraq Beach, which offers this bizarre but beautiful mix of desert and ocean.
It truly is a unique geological junction. Unlike most coastal zones, Iraq Beach is surrounded by giant sand dunes that rise dramatically, 50 to 100 feet high, right next to the turquoise sea. So you have this massive accumulation of wind-blown sand meeting the waves in one breathtaking visual paradox that feels simultaneously like the Sahara and the Caribbean.
And nestled right against these dramatic dunes is a natural anomaly, a freshwater spring flowing right out of the sand.
That is the truly fascinating feature. A freshwater spring, fed by underground sources filtering through the mountain bedrock, flows right out near the base of the massive sand dunes, forming these small, precious pools. This anomaly allows specialized water-loving plants to grow and thrive in the immediate vicinity, creating a tiny, rare oasis just feet away from the salty Indian Ocean.
Iraq Beach also connects us to the Detwa Lagoon, another key coastal ecosystem. The sources suggest this lagoon is defined by unique tidal patterns.
Detwa Lagoon is a dynamic coastal feature. It's characterized by these dramatic tidal movements that constantly reshape and shift the sandbars, creating a maze of shallow, calm pools. This constant movement prevents stagnation and makes it an exceptionally important, pristine safe haven for marine life.
What kind of species use this lagoon as a refuge?
It's a critical nursery. The calm, shallow waters are frequented by species seeking safety from the open ocean, including stingrays, small, harmless reef sharks, and various rare fish species. Moreover, it's a crucial resting and feeding area for migratory birds. Some of these birds travel thousands of kilometers along flyways across the Indian Ocean, making Detwa Lagoon an irreplaceable refueling stop.
And we have to mention the auditory element here, too. The sand itself is an experience.
Yes. Visitors report that the sand is so fine and composed of such minute granules that it creates friction as you walk, causing it to actually squeak beneath your feet. It adds this ethereal, almost musical quality to the experience, intensifying the otherworldly feel of the lagoon.
Finally, let's ascend again to the geological backbone of the island, the Hagir Mountains. At 5,503 meters, they're the highest point, and they tell a massive geological story.
The Hagir Mountains are essentially the ancient heart of Socotra. Their unique composition is primarily hard, igneous rock granite, which formed millions of years ago, deep beneath the Earth's crust. Over time, tectonic activity pushed this core upward, and then subsequent erosion by wind and water exposed the granite, carving the jagged peaks, steep cliffs, and deep dramatic canyons we see today. It's a story of colossal underground forces brought to the surface.
And the combination of this high granite elevation and the unique climate patterns creates the necessary conditions for a rare water feature, seasonal waterfalls like Dirac.
Correct. The high elevation intercepts the seasonal monsoon moisture, creating the perfect conditions for these spectacular, if temporary, waterfalls. Dirac is particularly interesting because it doesn't rely on a permanent river. It's fed by both underground springs that tap into the granite structure and the seasonal rains collected in the highlands, which then form these powerful cascades over the cliffs, creating a rare and beautiful oasis in an otherwise dry, rocky landscape.
And the forces of water carving that hard granite lead us directly to the dramatic Callison Canyon. You mentioned its winding, serpentine shape.
Callison Canyon is a stunning geological feature, a deep, winding formation that looks like a snake trail carved into the earth. Its serpentine shape is a textbook example of how water exploits weaknesses in the bedrock. The persistent flow of seasonal water and underground movement naturally follows the path of least resistance, wearing away softer material and exploiting fault lines and fissures in the granite. Over millions of years, this results in a dramatic, twisting channel that continues to deepen.
The journey through a formation like that must be both physically demanding and incredibly rewarding.
It is challenging. The rocky slopes are steep, the narrow paths twist sharply, and navigating the uneven terrain requires focus. But those who endure the journey are rewarded with profound sights. Enormous boulders that have been polished smooth by eons of water flow, and moments where you are completely surrounded by the sheer raw power of geology at work. It leaves a lasting impression of the island's ancient power.
We should quickly revisit the coastal edge and the Zoc sand dunes, particularly near Shab Beach,
Right.
for one final piece of geological insight.
Yes, the Zoc sand dunes on the northern coast are a dynamic, living feature. They are constantly shaped by powerful seasonal winds that shift the fine sand into unique patterns, ripples, and high ridges. But what's interesting is their composition. These fine grains are largely eroded from nearby limestone formations, which is key to understanding the island's deep geological history.
And that geological history confirms a marine past.
It does. Traces of ancient marine fossils, fragments of shells, and microscopic organisms have been found distributed throughout the sand itself. This provides clear evidence that this entire coastal area was once submerged beneath the sea. Nearby Shab Beach, which is renowned for its pristine white sand and breathtaking panoramas of turquoise water, is just an extension of this dynamic coastline.
And that coastline supports vibrant marine life right off its shores.
Shab Beach is especially well known for its active dolphin population. The exceptionally clear waters here are frequently visited by several species, notably bottlenose and spinner dolphins. These intelligent social creatures are often seen swimming in large pods, playing in the waves, or leaping out of the water in graceful arcs, a beautiful dynamic counterpoint to the ancient silent plant life on the plateau above.
What an incredible journey we've taken today, from the vertical defense strategies and ancient engineering of the mainland architects, like the multi-generational effort behind the 2,000-year-old terraces on Jabal Sabir and the massive Marib Dam, to the irreplaceable and utterly unique endemic life of Socotra and its iconic condensing dragon blood trees.
The core insight really is adaptation. On one hand, you have the incredible human effort required to manage water and build resilience in an arid land over thousands of years. On the other, you have the biological time capsule of Socotra, where species have persevered for millions of years simply through isolation and unique, ingenious evolutionary adaptations. Both systems showcase this deep commitment to perseverance.
This incredible heritage leads us directly to the current context, which raises an important question. What is the risk to these irreplaceable, timeless treasures today?
And we have to acknowledge the harsh current reality. Ongoing unrest and conflict have left deep scars across the region. Access to many of these magnificent historical and natural places has become extremely difficult, and the sheer lack of resources means that those generational maintenance cycles we discussed, the periodic replastering of Shibam's walls, the upkeep of ancient terracing are being interrupted. Historic sites, which are sacred cultural identifiers, are at severe risk of degradation and being lost forever.
Right.
However, the fight for cultural preservation is deeply rooted in the identity of the people of this land. They continue to fight to preserve these treasures in the midst of all this chaos.
It is a profound situation where human ingenuity and natural wonder are battling against the forces of conflict and time, all while the international community finds itself unable to assist with necessary preservation.
Indeed. But all these wonders, the 500-year-old mud skyscrapers, the sophisticated ancient tombs of Al-Mawit, the unchanged Socotra species, they remain. They're patiently waiting for a future where peace can restore their rightful place in the world, allowing the critical work of preservation and research to continue.
So we leave you with this final provocative thought. We have spent this deep dive looking at systems designed for permanence, the endurance of the high-gear granite mountains, the 2,000-year-old functional terraces, and the 500-year maintenance commitment embedded in the design of Shibam. These examples teach us that true resilience requires foresight and a deep, multi-generational commitment. What lessons can we, in our modern world, draw from this profound human and natural past about the kind of persistent generational perseverance required when facing the immediate chaos and uncertainty of the present? The answers are literally built into the landscape, patiently waiting for us to learn from them.